Hey everybody, this is Anthony over at AnthonyCharlesPodcast.com, and joining me today is an Emmy award-winning TV news anchor currently anchoring on 3 newscasts a day on KLS TV and CBS in Las Vegas. He's the president of the only voiceover industry trade association called World Voices Organization, and he's the author of More Than Just a Voice, The Real Secret to Voiceover Success. Please welcome to the show, Mr. Dave Courvo.
Hey, how's it going, Charles?
Good. How are you?
Good, man. I'm hanging in Vegas today. I got the week off, so I'm just really floating and taking some time and getting some things done.
Excellent, man. And you can tell, even just hearing your voice talking now, there's a presence, like there's a quality of it that really has that professional feel to it.
You know, actually in voiceover, that doesn't go over so well because everybody wants, conversational these days. So the announcer guy should go away, but in broadcast news, it's still present, so you get into this pattern, and so I got to kind of learn to drop that when I go into voiceover mode.
That's true, man. I've been reading your book, actually, the More Than Just a Voice book that's available on Amazon, Kindle, and paperback. And that's something that you state pretty early, that conversationalism is pretty important nowadays.
So, most of us in voiceover get our audition requests by internet. And they usually come with directions. The guy who's looking to hire will say, gee, I want this kind of personality, or I want that kind of attitude. And almost without exception, those directions come by and say, no announcer, don't want announcery. It's just not the thing anymore. It used to be, the thing. This is going back years, but now everybody wants conversational, and nobody really knows what that means. What that, but it's kind of a concept that isn't really well defined in most people's heads. So you just kind of try to be the everyday on the street guy and hope that that's what they want. I mean, it's really tough. I think they're kind of depending on you as the talent to interpret the copy and decide for yourself what's appropriate for that copy.
Do you think that there's a shift from the narrator or announcer voice to the conversational voice? Because is it maybe that people feel like they've been pitched to so many times that they need almost a friend's voice of recommending products?
I'm sure that's behind it. People don't want to be spoken to; they want to be in a conversation, and they want to feel like it's your friend or your buddy or someone you just hit on the street. And it's kind of a relaxing of a standard of formal talk to, hey, what's going on, man? It's just making it more on the street level.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So let's take a trip back. When did you first get your start? I know that you've been a news anchor for a pretty substantial while now.
I started in radio. Oh, you're going to make me feel old here. I started in radio in like 1977. I was a country and western DJ, and then I went to a top 40 station, and then I switched to TV. I'm almost too embarrassed to tell you what my first job in TV was. And then I convinced the news department at that TV station that I could actually think and write and appear on camera. And so they gave me a morning weekend anchor thing. And from there on out, I just kept knocking on doors and pushing and pushing. And I ended up here in Las Vegas in 1985 at the NBC affiliate. And I took a brief break to go back to the Midwest and work at a station there because my parents were getting really old. And then I came back in 2003, and I've been here at the CBS affiliate, for 12, 13 years.
Wow, that's incredible, man. So it's almost, in a way, you've been successful twice. You've had your career, with CBS affiliate being a news anchor, and that's its own journey. That's its own full thing.
No question. No question. I really was lucky that I hit the heyday of TV news. Right now, I think it's in decline. I mean, people, millennials, younger generations are getting their news off their iPhone. I am. I just think the popularity of local news has kind of gone away. It's slowly eroding. It's radio's still around. When TV came, radio was suffering. Now TV is suffering because the internet came around. And I'm seeing that happen. And I thought, I got at least one good thing left in me. So I launched the voiceover career because I think that's still very vibrant and has a lot of great potential.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it too, every app has some sort of sound interactive capability at this point, and it seems as the more these products are going to be evolving, the more that human element of an actual human voice needs to be present.
Well, God bless you for saying that, because I tell you what, there are some challenges coming into our business from artificial voices. I mean, people are trying to approximate the human voice artificially, and some audiences, I guess, will tolerate that. But for the most part, you're right. I think people want to hear that human voice, especially with audiobook narration. I don't think anybody will ever be able to fake that.
Mm.
And so, they're looking for that personal touch. And the digital world has actually brought more opportunities for voiceover people, because now there's, the explainer videos, the whiteboard videos, the tutorials. I mean, there's just a ton of stuff. Every Tom, Dick, and Harry company that makes success on the internet has some kind of a tutorial or an e-learning video that goes along with, here's how to use our service, and they need a professional voice to do so. So yeah, there's actually good opportunities.
Yeah, and this brings up a good point too, because a lot of these ideas that you mentioned here are also found in your blog, and then also your book as well. Can you talk about the process of creating more than just a voice?
So, yeah, it's a great story. It's one that I repeat over and over, because at least once a week, sometimes 2 or 3 times a week. Just yesterday, I got a call from a guy, and typically the caller has a great voice. I mean, you're like, whoa, this is James Earl Jones calling, and they've been told all their life by their friends and their family that they should be on radio or they should be in voiceover, and I get that, because a good voice, helps, but it's only about 10 to 20% of the success that you can expect in voiceover. The rest of it has to come from just being a savvy marketer, a good business person, having goals, knowing what you're about in promoting yourself. And so that's not what a lot of people want to hear. But I've been blogging about that for 7 or 8 years. I blogged to the voiceover community, and I had so many great articles written that I thought, well, I'm going to compile all these articles into a book. And that's how the book came to be. But the title was obvious. It was, it takes more than just a good voice. This is the real secret to voiceover success. It's being a good business person.
Yeah, and honestly, that's the refreshing thing about your book. I tend to be kind of a knowledge hound. I'm always trying to read books on all sorts of things. I do production and post-production. I've done a couple audiobooks myself, so it's always nice to get someone's thoughts on things. And there's a big schism between academia, what works theoretically, and what is the way it's always been, versus the in the trenches kind of guy. And when I'm reading your book, you're an in the trenches kind of guy. You know what it really is.
Well, it's my thoughts as I went along my walk, being a success in voiceover, and so it's kind of trial and error stuff. And people who read my book tell me they read it like they hear me talking, and which is as a writer, that's kind of a gift. I didn't really try to achieve that style. It just that's how I write, and so it's worked well for me.
Yeah, I agree. There is a style. As I was reading it, I'm thinking that this is somebody who took something very nebulous and kind of abstract, where you're thinking, okay, there's so many pieces of this and how I'm not really sure, and that cloud of confusion tends to disempower a lot of people from being able to complete a task.
Yep.
So when you're writing, and I'm reading what you obviously wrote, I feel that this is somebody who just said, listen, I've been through all that. This is what you need to know. It's simple.
I'm glad it hit you that way, because that's really the way I wanted it to be. And people are telling me they enjoy it. It's not the Bible, but it's my walk, and through my walk of trial and error, you can learn something. So don't make my mistakes. Here's how to do it. And it's helped a lot of people. I'm really happy about that. I didn't do it to make a lot of money. I just wanted to get a point across, which is, having a good voice just doesn't do it all. I know. I have colleagues with thin, high, raspy voices who are killing it in voiceover because they're great marketers.
That makes a lot of sense. Do you feel that marketing is something that is missing from the overall spectrum? Because, being in the arts, you always see this as, hey, you can do this too. Get on board. This is all you need to know. And then,
there's such a wide spectrum of marketing. You can't be a success without marketing of some kind. I mean, even if you're sending postcards out, or if you're on the social media, or you're doing cold calling, you've got to do something, because there's so much noise out there. You've got to cut through that clutter and get your message across. So whatever works for you. Some people are really lousy at cold calling, but they're really good at writing newsletters, or so you got to find what works for you and get it out there, because there's just no other way to be noticed. You've got to do marketing and publicizing, and there's a lot of words for it, but it's getting your message out.
And speaking of which, too, I mean, having all these different concepts compiled into one thing, being the president of the only voiceover industry trade association, World Voices, can you explain a little bit about how that came to be and the importance of having this organization?
Well, so voice actors are freelance independent contractors. They work in isolation, and we talk to each other online and things like that. But basically, it's an unorganized community of freelancers, and as such, are sometimes taken advantage of by some of the new paradigms in the business, which would include Voices.com and Voice 123. These are online casting sites that take jobs from their clients, people looking for a voice, and they match them with people who are voice talents. Well, that's all fine and good. It's kind of a clearinghouse or a way to meet other jobs. but the truth of the matter is some of those pay to plays, as we call them in our business, those subscription sites are taking advantage of the unorganization of the voiceover community, and double dipping, triple dipping, even quadruple dipping in the process of the interaction of the job, and it's kind of ruffling our feathers. So we we decided to launch this industry trade association as an advocate, a way to promote voice acting, a way to organize and to have one voice and to feel a little more power. Now, you might think that's something the union would or should or could do, SAG-AFTRA, but they aren't. For some reason, voice actors have always kind of been the redheaded stepchild of the union, and they just aren't real agile in the marketplace to represent us. So we're kind of doing that for ourselves. We're trying to find a way to organize our voice. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, and it's extremely important to do. I mean, literally, as I'm sitting here, I am 2-3 blocks away from the SAG-AFTRA building, and
Okay.
yeah, it's funny. I mean, it's just so funny because a friend of mine who wants to put his voiceover reel together, you can use their studios and things like that, but it's not the priority. It's sort of a background thing. It's not really a standard issue.
They're doing some things, and I understand they're a huge organization. They've got this legacy that kind of drags them down. They're very top heavy administratively, and I'm union. I don't mean to badmouth them, but they just have proven to us over the years that they're not agile. They don't move fast to handle. Now, they're very New York and LA centric, so they watch out for those people. But anybody in between, if you live in Omaha or Little Rock, forget it. You're not even on their radar, and that's kind of not fair.
I agree. Yeah. So, I mean, having a voice like that, a united front like that where everyone can get together is extremely important, especially in light of, those kind of marketing campaigns like Voices.com, Voices 123, those things where it's like, you can be a success too. All you got to do is pay me a little bit of money. You do the rest of the work.
And that's the other thing. We're also kind of going off on some of these guys who are predatory demo mills. Just join us for the weekend and you'll come away with a working demo that you can. It's crap. It takes time. This is a marathon, not a sprint, to be a success in voiceover. And you can't just go to some workshop in a weekend, come out with a demo, and expect it's going to be the magical pill to having sacks of money delivered at your door. It's just not going to happen. So there's these indiscriminate coaches and demo mills that we're also actively speaking out against because they're unfair. It gives our business a bad name.
Yeah. And that's one of the seriously important reasons I needed to have you on the show, is because I really pushed for the voiceover thing. It started as a podcast, so essentially just a voice on a microphone. Right. So from there it bloomed into this passion for all these really cool activities, things you can do from there. So instead of I always try to spin everything around because it is easy to get caught up in the muck. And now that people are aware of it, let's light a candle instead of curse the darkness. What are some ways that we can advance past this stuff? What are some things that people should be looking to do in the voiceover?
You mean to help the voiceover industry as a whole?
Yep, and try not to get caught up in those predatory traps now that we're aware of what they are.
Well, I'd say one of the great things to do is find a mentor, find someone you really trust, who is a success in this business, and ask them the questions, because there are great coaches out there who are definitely on top of their game and have a lot of integrity. And they're not cheap, but that's because they're good, and they do things right. So ask a friend, ask World Voices. We will help along with this decision about where to find good demo producers or good coaches. So just ask, and also you have to know your worth. Now, as a newbie in voiceover, maybe you aren't quite worth the top dollar because you're still struggling, you're still learning, you're still practicing. Fine, but don't stoop to the Fiverr level of accepting jobs. That hurts everybody in our business when you accept these jobs. Now there's a wide spectrum of beliefs and understandings about what you're worth and pricing and compensation in the marketplace. There's a lot of disagreement about that, and we're not going to argue with people who choose Fiverr or Odesk or Elance to get their jobs. But it comes down to, what are you worth? What do you think you're worth? What do you think your product is worth? How much have you invested in coaching and equipment and your sound booth? And what's your product worth? You have to really evaluate that sincerely before you start pricing yourself out of the market or pricing yourself under the market. It's a matter of it's kind of an ethereal adjustment of what you think you're worth in the marketplace, and that comes with time. You start to understand that over time.
What would you say to someone that that maybe got a USB microphone or something that's like a one-off plug-and-play sort of situation, no acoustic treatment, no real backgrounds? They make the mistake of saying, like, I could do the voices I hear on TV, I could do those character voices, and they start with something like Fiverr. What would you say to someone like that?
Okay, so that may be an appropriate use of Fiverr because they're going to get practice. They're going to see the kind of copy that's out there and the kind of things that people need. Now, I did the same thing. I started out, I do great impersonations too, but there's very little call for that. Every once in a while, you'll see a person who will say, I need a George Bush sound-alike. Okay, well, great. If you do a George Bush, then you're in like Flint. But most people, they're looking for conversational. They're looking for a good read that understands the author's intent in the copy. Copy interpretation is huge. I mean, you've got to know how to do that, and it takes time. It takes lots of practice. I would say, listen to your radio, listen to your TV commercial. Forget the program, listen to the commercial sets. Those are the guys that got the job. What are they doing? How do they sound? What's the interpretation they gave to the copy? That's what's going to do you the most good. But Fiverr might be a great place to start because you're going to get lots of practice there.
Yeah, and that is that kind of nebulous sort of area of voiceover. But you're right, listening to the commercials like you have in your book as well. Trying to fast forward past the commercials in Breaking Bad, and you're explaining like, no, let's watch this, let's enjoy these, because I think the same way. I agree with you, because someone did have to write the copy, someone did have to get this produced. It did go to the studio. They found somebody who auditioned for it. Yep. You're hearing at the end. You know what else is true? Internet radio too. I noticed a lot of very conversational ads. Those are everywhere as well. So
I do stuff for Pandora, and I do listen to TV ads a lot. I hear ads that I've auditioned for and didn't get the gig, and I listen to how that guy gave the copy. So, and I go, that's what they wanted? That's not what the directions said.
Wow.
and so I kind of find that helps me interpret what directors say and what they really want. And sometimes it's two totally different things.
Mm. Yeah, that must be really meta when you're hearing something. You're like, I remember being in the booth with that. I remember holding that in my hands.
Yeah, pretty funny.
Wow, man. So, is there anything that you would recommend for someone who might be interested in finding a mentor, or finding a teacher to someone maybe produce their reel in the cloud of noise that is the voiceover industry, especially on the internet? How could someone find someone that they trust?
Yeah, voiceover people, like I said, they work in their isolation booths. They're not out there. It's not a high-profile position. But believe me, there's one in your neighborhood probably, especially if you live in LA or any of the major cities. There's definitely voiceover people in your community. You can start looking in meetup groups. You can start. You could go to World Voices. It's worldvo.org, and sign up for a mentor. We have I think 150 people that say they're willing to be mentors, which means you can get a free half hour of counsel for every month. That may not sound like much, but it'll really get you started.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Ask around, ask if you know anybody who's doing voiceover, and can I talk to them briefly? Here's the thing about voiceover people is they're extremely giving, supportive, encouraging. I was wiped away when I got into this out of broadcasting, because broadcasting's knock heads, dog eat dog world, very competitive. Not so in voiceover. Everybody's helpful. I mean, really, it's amazing. I have other people in other jobs tell me, wow, voiceover people are so cool. They're so helpful, and it is. So if you find the right person, ask for a referral. Get a name of somebody else. If they're not willing to do it, maybe they'll let you know somebody else who can do it.
It's true. They are the nicest people. I mean, living in sort of the capital of competitive maybe
Yeah.
selfishness, maybe guardedness is the word I should use.
Yeah.
There's this adage that I heard somewhere. It says two things. First thing is never tell them everything you know, and the second thing is and they get quiet, you know, and that's the mentality of a lot of the actors and things like that.
Yeah, and I get that. I mean, voiceover people won't tell you everything either, but they'll give you a hint of how to get it. You know, rates are something that not a lot of voiceover people talk about. They're not going to tell you how much they make or what they're worth or what their charge, but they'll give you a great idea of how you might be able to get around it yourself and figure out what you want to charge. I mean, it's really a wonderful community. I love it. And World Voices, as we're just growing like crazy. We hit 500 earlier this year. We're at 535, and we get 2 or 3 new signups every day. So people see the need for it, and that's really encouraging.
Yeah, I'm going to be a part of that sign up. I mean, I'm learning more about this just from talking to you, and that's the beautiful thing that I get to experience on this show too. Is I'm reading the book, and again, I'm thinking isolationist. You know, I'm reading this book and like advertising the material. You know, I'm trying to, but then by the process of it, I'm being exposed to this whole other world of things that I only briefly knew about. So
podcasting's huge, man. You're onto something. I mean, it's just growing by leaps and bounds, and a lot of people in podcasting realize they have talent. Now they're getting into audiobooks, or they're doing other things in voiceover. So there's a lot of interplay there between the two.
Yeah. So what would you say is, I always ask somebody at the end of it, and I usually leave it to be like the last question to see what spontaneously occurs in their answer. But what would you say to someone who is just starting out, who let's say even it was you talking to your earlier self before you learned all these lessons and all these things that you know, what would you tell yourself back in the day?
Ask a lot of questions. I mean, seriously, find people to ask, and don't be afraid to ask questions. That's a strength. Don't be afraid to fail. You're gonna trip and fall. Those are opportunities. I mean, you hear all these, stories about, Colonel Sanders and how many times he pitched his 11 herbs and spices before he finally found success. I mean, it takes persistence. The word I like to use is immersion. I immersed myself in the voiceover world because I was so passionate about trying to be good at it that I threw caution to the wind, and I started doing everything I could to be immersed in that community. And so, those are the things I say. I said persistence, immersion, ask questions, get a mentor. Don't be afraid to seek the right answers.
That's incredible, man. That's the most poignant way of putting a lot of these concepts that, again, you're very talented at doing. You do that in your book. You do that in your blog.
Well, thanks.
Taking these giant things and distilling them. So, yeah. Absolutely. So I want to thank you again for taking the time. I know how busy you are, and the amount of work that you're doing, it's very tangible because you can see it on your website. I'm actually looking at it now. It's Courvo.com, spelled Courvo.com.
Yep.
And you can see the voiceover work you do on camera stuff, the book's there, the blog is there. It's an incredible resource for anyone that's interested in voiceover.
Well, Anthony, I got to tell you, I really appreciate your time and having me on your show because what I'm hearing in the marketing world is that appearing on podcasts can multiply your marketing manyfold because they're so popular, and you've obviously got a really good one going. And I really appreciate the time and the effort you put into preparing for this interview because I sent you a copy of my book. You've obviously read it. That's huge as a host of a podcast, to be so prepared. So thank you.
Oh, man, thank you. The pleasure's mine, man, really. So definitely check out More Than Just a Voice, Dave Courvo's book. You can find him online at Courvo.com, spelled Courvo.com. And for Dave, this is Anthony saying goodbye, and we will see you next time.